The abrupt closing of the Long Island Bridge has been a wrenching setback for the homeless and people needing help with recovery. The city has taken stopgap measures and is considering more permanent steps, but the people displaced and their advocates say the city has to do more and do it quickly. Two of them are with us tonight, members of the Boston Homeless Solidarity Committee. We'd like to welcome Sherry King and Cleve Ray. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Cleve Ray. You're one of the displaced homeless. How have things changed for you right now?
Well, I guess the biggest change from Long Island is the people at the fitness center, South End Fitness Center, are...
which is where you're staying temporarily.
Which is where I'm staying temporarily. There's 220 men there, 175 men housed on cots on a basketball court, 42 more men in our makeshift dining room sleeping on the floor on a thin mat. We have 2 sheets and a blanket, and we're much, much closer together than we were on Long Island. If you stand between 2 cots, you have to stand sideways, and the back of your leg and your knee are touching the 2 cots. So we're very, very, very close. We've been taking flu shots because of the close proximity of so many men together.
Now, I know being homeless is no picnic no matter what kind of a facility you're in, but put this in context, because this isn't just about being uncomfortable. Talk about psychologically how this affects people, because they're going from one state to another. We hope to a better state in their life, but how does this change that?
It's a very big challenge, I believe, to our self-esteem and to our sense of dignity. I think it takes a strong person to hold on to those 2 things when we're faced with the overcrowdedness of our shelter the way we are. Even worse is the bathroom. With 220 men, we have to go downstairs 1 floor to a bathroom that has 2 urinals, 2 stalls with no doors, 3 sinks, and 1 shower room with 6 shower heads. It's just, it makes it hard to do the things that one used to do on a daily basis as far as hygiene is concerned.
Sherry King, you're transitioning out of homelessness, and I understand that this whole change here since the bridge was shut down is even worse for women than for men. Why is that?
Because access to beds was already at a minimum. There's probably 1/3 of the beds available for women as there are for men. And from what I understand, especially from what Lisa Jenkins has said,
she's one of the homeless people, and she's actually living outside.
Yeah, she lives outside because there are no beds available for women since the closing of Long Island. Or at least more beds or of equal amount being made available. What I understand as a result of this, she has heard and knows of 6 women who have died since the closing of Long Island. And that's what happens. Women make choices not because they want to, but because the options are taken from them. And so when there aren't enough beds in an established shelter, whether Long Island was open or not, women make choices that cost them their lives or their health.
What's the most helpful thing that could be done for them right away?
Right away? Take a building there's a lot of buildings actually that are recently closed that could be opened for women and for the men. To be more honest about how many women are homeless instead of depending on
outdated records, maybe?
Outdated census taking. What doesn't help is the federal standards by HUD that determine whether you're homeless or not, because a lot of women end up doubling up at friends' house because there are no options. And that's the safest way to go. And even that could be unsafe for them.
Cleve, I know there are still debates going on about which remedies are the best, especially in the short term. But I guess the other thing coming up here is about who gets to take part in the discussion with people in the mayor's administration about what to do. How do you feel about the homeless themselves as far as their inclusion?
Well, we're not included at this time. Mr. Arroyo had indicated that he was interested in including us, which I think would be a great boon to the city. I think when you're in committees that are making decisions, especially based on statistics, people tend to become numbers and lose their humanity. So if you had homeless there in front of you, reminding you that they are in fact humans and could change the conversation slightly to start dealing with us as human beings deserving dignity and stability and a sense of hope for the future.
I know, Sherry, this is part of the demands in the Homeless Bill of Rights, but one of the other things here, topping the list, is declaring a state of emergency. You dramatize the situation, but beyond that, how does that make things better?
Doing a state of emergency would open funds, would even the field out, for people that are being underserved. And it would actually, show a real sense of seriousness, that you're taking the situation seriously and you really care.
Cleve, what about getting the belongings? I know, I guess that has been taken care of, but it took, 4 weeks or so?
Oh,
more than that. We left Long Island on October the 8th, and we just got a letter, I think on Thursday last week, saying that the possessions were going to be retrieved and offering some suggestions on how those belongings could be retrieved from someplace on the mainland if people were indeed still interested in getting them, or that they could be stored until such a time as the people in shelters had a place where they could in fact store those things. But it's been a long wait, and all we have is a letter. So
Sure. How do you feel? I mean, given how abrupt everything was with the bridge being shut down, could this have been handled better?
Oh, definitely. The bridge has been deteriorating for years. By the sounds of it, it must have been built wrong somehow, or just they didn't know how to maintain it right. And there was in one of the papers, they were describing, and in the meeting they were describing that they were coming up with these plans. And the problem with the bureaucracy of living in being homeless is you're in the dark. Your ability to be part of your own life and decisions having to do with you is taken from you. And if they had given one iota of consideration to the people that lived there, they would have said, hey, this is going to happen. You might want to plan something.
Please, one other idea, it's still being debated here both ways, having a ferry service or some speedboat ambulances. It sounds from the city as if that's not going to be workable, at least sometimes when the weather gets really bad. But how do you feel about that option for keeping things going at the island as opposed to having to relocate people?
Well, one of the gentlemen at the meeting on Wednesday made a good suggestion, and that is have the Seabees build a temporary bridge across like they do during wartime. I don't know why that's not feasible, but it seems to me that the city isn't as interested in reopening Long Island as they may sound like they are. There was a gentleman who runs the camp for kids out there on the island every summer that's offered to pay for building a new dock, and has ordered paid for the ferry service is over, and the city has turned him down. Granted, if you have to use the water for emergency services, water is probably not the best way to do it. But having the Seabees build a bridge why not?
Interesting question. Thank you very much for being with us, Cleve Ray and Sherry King. In a moment, better transportation for new growth in Boston's Seaport District.